Welcome to this complete step-by-step masterclass on Coohom. If you are watching this, you probably have a room, a whole house, or a client project that you need to visualize, and you want it to look incredibly realistic without spending weeks learning complicated software. Today, we are doing a deep dive into the Coohom interface. You will see my screen the entire time, and we are going to build a space from an empty digital canvas all the way to a photorealistic 3D render. Before we click Create, let's talk about why we are using Coohom today instead of traditional CAD-D software like SketchUp, 3ds Max, or casual apps like Planner 5D. The biggest reason is the rendering engine. If you've tried 3D modeling before, you know that rendering a photorealistic image usually requires a heavy, expensive gaming computer. Coohom is entirely cloud-based. That means the heavy lifting is done on their servers, not your laptop. You can get a stunning ray-traced render in about 10 seconds right in your web browser. Secondly, the parametric tools, specifically for kitchens and custom cabinetry, are unmatched for a browser-based tool. You don't have to build a cabinet from scratch. The software calculates the countertops, the toe kicks, and the moldings for you. Everything I am showing you today is accessible right out of the box. You don't need to purchase credits or upgrade your account to follow along and get a stunning result. We are going to use the massive public catalog, the standard lighting templates, and the native floor planner. Let's get started. All right, as soon as we click Create New Project, Coohom drops us directly into the driver's seat, the 2D floor plan interface. I love this approach because there are no unnecessary loading screens or extra menus to click through. We are ready to draft immediately. Let's take a quick tour of our workspace because understanding this layout right now will cut your design time in half later. On the far left, we have our floor plan panel. Think of this as your primary toolbox. It's logically broken down into importing options, your drawing tools, and structural elements like doors and windows. On the right side, you'll see a live 3D preview box at the top, and right below that is the basic properties panel for whatever we currently have selected. It's a very simple workflow. Grab your building tools on the left and tweak their specific details on the right. Here is a quick fun fact while we look at this blank grid. Coohom originally started as a visualization tool for furniture retailers. The goal was to show everyday customers exactly how couches would look in their actual living rooms. Because it was built to be fast and user-friendly for people without an architecture degree, the room building tools are incredibly intuitive. Let's prove it by drawing our room. Looking at the Draw Room section on the left, you'll see a few options. We have the straight wall, which you can also trigger by pressing B on your keyboard, and the rectangle wall, triggered by pressing F. If you have a weirdly shaped room with lots of corners, you'd use the straight wall tool to trace it out line by line. But today, we just want to get a room up and running fast to learn the ropes, so we are going to use the rectangle wall tool. I'll click once on the grid to anchor my starting corner, drag my mouse out to whatever size looks good, and click again to lock it in. Voila! Just like that, all four walls are placed perfectly square. You really don't need to stress over the exact math right now. Just drag it out and eyeball the proportions to get a feel for it. Notice what happens when the four walls connect. A texture automatically fills the floor area, in this case, a light wood grain, and the text unnamed appears in the center. This shading is incredibly helpful because it's your visual confirmation that the software recognizes this space as a real enclosed room, which means lighting will work properly later on. Now, shift your attention back over to the right side of the screen under the Basic tab. Because we successfully formed a room, Coohom immediately gives us the structural data. It shows the room height, which defaults to 2800. Standard ceilings in most modern homes are a bit lower than that, but adjusting it is simple. You can always just click right here and type in a new number if you want to squash or stretch your walls to match your actual house. Before we jump fully into 3D, we need to let some light in and give ourselves a way into the room. Back on the lower left, under Place Doors and Windows, I'm going to grab a standard door and drag it onto our right wall. Watch how it effortlessly snaps directly into the wall and automatically cuts the hole for you. There is no manual cutting required. Then I'll grab a window, place one on the left wall, and drop another on the bottom wall. Now, notice that upper right preview window? As we drag and drop these flat 2D icons onto our grid, you can actually see the 3D model updating in real time in that mini map. It's an amazing time-saving feature that lets you verify exactly what you're doing and check your placements without ever having to leave the 2D drafting mode. Now that our structural shell is fully built, let's step inside. Now we get to the really fun part. Down at the bottom of the screen, I'm clicking the 3D button, though you can also just click the 3D option directly on your view cube if you prefer. Instantly, the software transitions, and our flat, technical blueprint becomes a fully realized, three-dimensional space that we can actually step inside and walk around in. To navigate this new space, the controls are incredibly intuitive. Just hold down your right mouse button and drag your mouse to look around the room, and simply scroll your mouse wheel to zoom in and out of specific areas. If you are comfortable with standard computer controls, you can also use the W, A, S, and D keys on your keyboard to physically walk around the space, exactly like you're playing a PC game. I highly recommend taking a brief second here to just fly around the room and get a comfortable feel for the camera controls. As you can see, right now, we're standing inside a very plain, sterile white box. Let's fix that and give this space some actual life and personality. Over on our trusty left-hand panel, I am opening up the public library, and from there, I'm clicking straight into the hard finishes category. Let's tackle the floors first to ground the design. I'll go ahead and click into wood flooring. You will immediately notice that Coohom has an absolutely massive, highly detailed library of real-world materials and textures to choose from. Browsing through, I'm going to grab this rich, warm oak texture. To apply it to our room, there are no complicated material nodes or UV mapping steps. You literally just click the material, drag it over to your 3D viewer, and drop it right onto the floor. Voila! Just like that, we have instant, realistic hardwood. Now, depending on the overall size of your room, sometimes the default texture scaling might be slightly off. If the wood grain looks a little too small and busy, or too big and pixelated, don't worry. You just click directly on the floor you just placed, look over to your right side properties menu, and simply play with the scale slider until the plank size looks realistic to your eye. It is a completely visual process with no complicated math required. Next up, let's do something about these blank walls. I'll open the wall paint section from the library and scroll through to find something with a bit of character. Maybe a moody charcoal or a nice earthy sage green. Once I find the perfect shade, I'll drag it directly onto just one wall to easily create a striking accent wall. Now, pay close attention, because here is a massive time-saving trick that you will use constantly. If you decide you want the whole room painted, simply hold down the Shift key on your keyboard while dragging that paint color into the room. Doing this instantly slaps that single color onto every connected wall in the room at the exact same time, saving you from having to drag and drop it 4 separate times. Finally, I want to share one quick pro-level design tip before we start shopping for furniture. Bare walls meeting bare floors will always make a 3D model look a little bit unfinished or fake. Real rooms in the real world have baseboards to seamlessly cover that seam. Fortunately, adding them here is completely effortless. All you have to do is click on your floor again, look over at that right side menu, and simply check the box that says Generate Baseboard. A menu will pop up letting you pick a trim style that fits your aesthetic. Select one you like, and boom, the software automatically calculates the perimeter and wraps a perfectly scaled baseboard around the entire room. It's so smart that it even automatically cuts itself out around the doorway we placed earlier, leaving you with a highly polished, realistic architectural shell that is completely ready for styling. Our architectural shell is looking fantastic, complete with textures and custom trims. Now, let's move on to the really exciting phase, furnishing the space. We are heading right back over to our trusty left-hand panel, but this time we are opening up the dedicated furniture library. Now, this is a massive workflow game changer. Unlike a lot of older, clunkier CAD software where you have to constantly scour the internet, download individual 3D model files, worry about polygon counts, and manually import them one by one, Coohom has a catalog of literally millions of high-quality, pre-optimized items built right into the platform. Everything you need is already waiting at your fingertips. To start, I'll go up to the search bar and type in modular sofa. You'll see dozens of beautiful styles pop up instantly. When I find a piece that catches my eye, I don't have to fiddle with complex placement tools. I just click and drag it right into our 3D room. Notice how it intuitively glides perfectly along the floor plane. It understands gravity. If I were to push it against a wall, it automatically rotates and snaps into alignment so it sits perfectly flush against the baseboards. For this layout though, I want a more open, airy flow, so I'll just drop it right here in the center of the room. Now, a floating sofa can sometimes look a bit awkward, so we desperately need an area rug to visually anchor this living space. I'll quickly search for a rug, drag a nice textured one into the scene, and slide it right under the sofa. Often, the default size of a library item might not perfectly match your specific furniture arrangement. If it looks a bit too small or disproportionate, there is no need to type in precise mathematical scale dimensions. Just click directly on the rug in the 3D view, grab the little directional arrows that appear on its edges, and smoothly stretch it out however you want. A great rule of thumb for interior design. Just eyeball the scaling until at least the front legs of the sofa are comfortably resting on the rug. Next up, let's toss in a complimentary coffee table right in front of the sofa. Now pay close attention to this next part, because this is honestly one of my absolute favorite quality of life features in the entire software. I want to style this table by putting a decorative vase on it. I'll navigate over to the Decor tab, find a minimal ceramic vase, and drag it over into the room. In most 3D programs, placing objects on top of other objects is a nightmare. But Coohom features a brilliant auto elevation and surface snapping tool. Watch closely as I move the cursor and the vase over the coffee table. It automatically recognizes the new height, pops up, and sits perfectly flush on the tabletop surface. You don't have to spend 10 frustrating minutes dragging the Z-axis up and down, constantly spinning your camera to guess if your decor is clipping through the wood or magically floating in midair. It just works. While we are in the groove of placing items, I want to share a crucial pro design tip, especially if your ultimate goal is to generate photorealistic renders of functional spaces. Do not forget the mundane, everyday utilities like HVAC and air conditioning units. A lot of beginners completely skip this, resulting in a room that looks like a sterile museum display rather than a home. Placing a sleek wall-mounted AC or a modern floor-standing unit really sells the subconscious realism of the design. I'll just type air conditioner into the library search, find a modern split-type unit, and drag it high up onto this blank wall. Just that one simple addition instantly transforms the model from a basic 3D exercise into a real, breathable, livable space. Finally, to inject a bit of color and personality, let's throw some wall art up as well. The mechanics here are exactly the same. When you drag a framed canvas from the library directly toward the wall, the software's collision detection kicks in and it seamlessly snaps right onto the vertical surface. From there, you just smoothly slide it up or down the wall until it's sitting comfortably at roughly eye level. It really couldn't be simpler to build out a beautifully styled room. All right, so we have a really cozy living room layout going here. We've got this nice deep black sofa, a beautifully patterned rug that ties the dark flooring together, and this fun pop of color with the pink round coffee table. Let's talk about styling for a second. When you are looking at a 3D render, it's the tiny details that trick your brain into thinking it's real. Right now, on our coffee table, we just have a couple of small items. Let's make it look lived in. I'll jump over to the editor's picks on the left panel. This is a great shortcut to find highly detailed curated decor without digging through the main catalog. I'll just drag over a stack of coffee table books and maybe a small decorative tray. Again, just eyeball it. Thanks to that auto snapping feature, they sit perfectly on the table. Voila. Voila. Here is another awesome trick. Let's say you love the shape of this sofa, but you hate the black leather. You don't need to go search for a brand new sofa. Just click on it and look at the right side menu for the material options. You can swap that black leather for a white boucle, a green velvet, or a gray linen with one click. Coohom's material library is massive, so you can customize almost any piece of furniture to fit your exact vibe. We'll leave it black for now because it really grounds the room, but it's great to know you have that power. Now, let's address the elephant in the room when it comes to 3D design, working in small spaces. If you look at our floor plan, we have this main living area, but we also have these really tight adjacent rooms and hallways. When you try to navigate your camera inside a tiny room, you end up constantly backing into walls. The camera gets stuck, your screen goes gray, and it can be super frustrating. But check this out. Look at the very bottom right corner of the interface. See that opacity slider for the wall? Grab that little blue dot and drag it to the left. Suddenly, your walls become completely invisible to you, but the furniture and floors stay exactly where they are. This is an absolute game changer. It lets you float your camera outside of the house and look inwards, giving you a perfect dollhouse view. You can drag and drop furniture into the tiniest closets or bathrooms without ever fighting the camera. When you're done, just slide the opacity back to 100% and the walls reappear. While we have this great view, let's look at that small adjacent room we built. Right now, it's totally empty. Here is a massive rendering tip. If you are taking a photo of your living room and there is an open door leading to another room, do not leave that other room completely empty. If the camera sees a void of nothingness through an open door, it shatters the realism of the photo. You don't have to fully design it, but just throw something in there to give it life. I'm going to search the catalog for a simple, narrow entryway console and drag it against the wall in that small room. Then I'll find a tall indoor plant, maybe a snake plant or a fiddle leaf fig, and just drop it in the corner. It takes 5 seconds, but when we render the living room later, seeing that hint of greenery and furniture through the doorway will make the whole house feel authentic and connected. All right, let's turn our wall opacity back up to 100%, jump back inside our living room, and get ready to set up our lighting. Welcome to the render studio. The box in the center of your screen is your camera lens. Whatever is inside that box is what you'll see in the final image. First, let's frame the shot. I am going to back the camera into the corner to capture as much of the room as I can. If the room feels a bit too cramped, look at the right side panel for the field of view slider, or FOV. I am going to slide it up just a bit to widen the lens. Don't go too crazy with it, or your room will start looking like a funhouse mirror. Next is the camera height. A super common rookie mistake is leaving the camera way up high at standing eye level. Interior photography always looks much better when you drop the camera down. I'll drag the elevation slider down to about chest height. It makes the furniture look grounded and makes the ceilings feel way taller. Now, for the magic touch, the lighting tab. You don't have to be a lighting expert to get a gorgeous result. Coohom has these pre-calculated lighting templates. I'm just gonna click the warm daylight template. This simulates beautiful morning sunlight. You can even grab the sunlight direction dial and spin it until the sunbeams stretch across your rug exactly how you want them. We look good to go. I am going to hit the blue render button at the bottom. Here is why people love Coohom. Because it's cloud-based, we don't have to sit here and wait an hour while our laptops overheat and sound like jet engines. Coohom servers do all the heavy lifting. Let's click on the gallery tab to see what we got. Look at that. In just seconds, we have a photorealistic image. Notice how the sunlight bounces off the floor, the soft shadows under the modular sofa, and the reflections on that kitchen countertop we generated. You can download this image right now, or you can even set up a panoramic walkthrough to send as a link to clients or friends. Play around with the catalog, have fun dragging and dropping things, and don't forget to drop that camera height before you hit render. Happy designing! And that's a wrap for this tutorial. Let's do a quick recap of everything we just covered. We started with a blank 2D grid, just dragging out our walls, doors, and windows. Then we jumped into 3D to easily drop in our flooring and paint and let the software automatically generate our baseboards. We furnished the space using the massive built-in catalog, taking advantage of the auto snapping feature to perfectly place decor. We even learned how to lower the wall opacity so we could easily design small spaces without the camera getting stuck. Finally, we stepped into the render studio, adjusted our camera height, picked a daylight template, and let the cloud handle the rest to give us a photorealistic image in seconds. Before you close out, just make sure you hit that save button at the top left so you don't lose your work. Have fun exploring the tools and happy designing.